Welcome to Pain to Purpose, the podcast where we transform our pain into power, peace, and purpose. I'm Sarah, your hope dealer, inspirational guide, and the storyteller in this podcast. Each week, we dive into inspirational stories of overcoming grief, custody battles, and trauma. Together, we'll foster transformation, resilience, and claim your personal responsibility for your story. Our stories offer hope, encouragement, and community support, guiding you toward better health and wellness. Join me as we discover actionable ways to leverage our struggles, find healing, and rise like a phoenix. Tune in to uncover your purpose, embrace mental health, and serve others, all while finding the strength to keep going.
Welcome to the Pain to Purpose podcast, and thank you so much for joining us for the initial launch here. And I am not your host, actually, so don't get used to me. But we're doing something a little different to get this started. Your host, Sarah, has an amazing story and asked me to guest host for this initial launch of the podcast. So, Sarah, good to see you.
Thank you. Lovely to see you too.
And thank you so much for having me do this. I'm really excited to talk to you. You have quite a story. Tell me a little bit about what you hope to do with this podcast, and what made you decide you wanted to create it.
Well, when your life, specifically my life, everything that was turned to ashes and burnt to the ground and in complete disarray, you kind of wonder, how can things ever get better? And rebuilding my life has certainly been a work in progress. And as I've emerged from these ashes slowly, I'm still in them. I've really wanted to reclaim my voice and realize that it's not been silenced. And by staying silent, by keeping this story just to myself, I realized I was not in service to others. And so wanted to share my very painful story of how I am overcoming tremendous odds and tragic situations, and how my story can impact and inspire you to overcome whatever you're facing.
That's incredibly vulnerable, and I want to first acknowledge you for doing that, because now you and I have known each other for a little while, so I know quite a bit about your story. So let's talk about it. What's the landscape right now? Like, let's set the stage for where's your life, what's happening, what's going on right now.
What's going on right now? Well, in the personal growth world or spirituality world, I think they would say it is dark nights of the soul. And I always say it's not nights, it's years. So I'm still in the years phase. Hopefully, maybe getting out of the nights into some brighter days in months coming up soon. But really, I guess, the current landscape is I am rebuilding my entire life from scratch. And while that can be very daunting, I also have had the perspective that it's also kind of liberating. Like, I am starting with nothing and I can rebuild whatever I want to rebuild from. And so that is kind of like the perspective I am having of, I got a blank canvas. I'm a masterpiece. What do we want my masterpiece to look like? And that's where I'm at.
So what is it that came crashing down? Like, at the height of your life to this point, what did it look like then?
Yeah, so previously I was a sponsored ultra endurance athlete. I've run 14 50 milers, 400 milers, traveled all across the country, self-authored a health and wellness book. Really was kind of at the peak of my career back in 2016, athletic wise. I was sponsored by the North Face at that point. I was on the Today Show, NBC Nightly News, other media outlets, and was feeling, probably too good. And the universe needed to give me a gift. I like the word gift instead of a lesson. So the gift was I met a guy And I say guy because he was not a man.
Mm.
And, you know, almost 8 years reflecting back on it, I now know why I got involved with this person. Fast forward a couple of years, I gave birth to my son, River, April 2018. And I had already been undergoing quite significant domestic abuse at home and was committed to the relationship and really overlooked a lot of things that were happening.
Now, were you still a sponsored athlete at this point, where when you had River and you were married?
I was not. I left my entire life. I was living in Colorado up till that point. I left my entire life behind to move about 9 hours west to where he was living at the time, and gave up my career in athletics and to be the wife and mother I was thought I was supposed to be.
So you give up the career. Now you're married. You're with a kid. You're in a whole new life. And how are you feeling at that point? Like, was this good? Were you excited, or was it kind of like where were you at that point?
Yeah, I was pretty isolated. I didn't know anybody where I moved to. I can make friends quickly, but I was pretty isolated into this small mountain town community. And I was feeling probably trapped at that point. Trapped, but also trying to keep, hope alive. No pun intended, hope alive way back then that things would get better. Um, like this is my life, gonna have to make the best of it. I made the choice to come out here, so buckle down. But definitely was feeling very, very confined to where I was.
Okay, so now you're married. You're with a child. Your life is calmed down quite a bit. Um, how was the marriage when River was born?
It was not very good. um a, Actually, right before River was born, he took off on a month trip. He actually had to come back early due to his business. He had inadvertently told his business partners that he was only going to be gone for a couple of weeks, and he knew that he was going to be gone for over a month. I was 36 weeks pregnant at the time, and as I look back on it, it's pretty brave of me to be 36 weeks pregnant and your spouse is just in the he was traveling overseas to different countries for fun. It was not business. It was a music concert and backcountry skiing.
Hmm.
But his business partners were like, "Oh, you're actually going to be gone like 5 weeks. You need to come home right now." So he did come home, and things were pretty tense. I was concerned about the pregnancy. I had a miscarriage 9 months beforehand, so the anxiety I had with this pregnancy was already super high.
So what happened so things are not great while you're pregnant. How old were you at this point?
I was 38.
Okay. And so then you have your son. What happens then?
Yeah, pain to purpose was even in the birth. Like the birth I had envisioned for my son did not go as planned. It's probably a whole different podcast, a whole different guest interview on that one. And as soon as River was born, my ex just, well, I guess my spouse at that point just disappeared. Would not come home. Really could not be bothered with me and my baby. A few weeks after River was born, he he tried to take out life insurance policies on me and my child, but nothing on him. It was over $500,000. That raised some red flags. Uh, he took my car away because he said we were low on money. So I had no vehicle. So I was trapped in a town with no public transportation, no way to get anywhere with an infant. things just kind of snowballed from there financially. He was really super controlling over the finances, was instigating fights for no reason whatsoever. A couple months into that, the one time, the one time he told me, he's like, if you don't agree to sell the house, I'm going to leave you. And I'm like, sell the house, where do you want to go? And he really just wanted me out of the house. My name wasn't on the house for whatever reason.
Mm.
So yeah, here I was isolated in a small community with no support, no friend, really minimal friends, no family, with a baby, no vehicle, no financial means. He was controlling all the finances. And I would find receipts in the trash can, like he was going for movies. He was, there's lots of incriminating evidence, let's put it that way. And I realized like he was living a double life, maybe even triple, and uh, instigating fights all the time. The one of the most violent one was when River was 4 months old. I was breastfeeding, and he started a fight, and I said, I'm not going to engage. I'm going to go upstairs to our master bedroom. I'm going to feed River, calm down. And I locked the master bedroom door, and he just was so irate. He got tools, like undid the handle on the door, and like barged his way in. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then he closed the door behind him. He actually like imprisoned us in our master bedroom, like the locking mechanism. He didn't take off the door. So the only way to safety was to jump 20 feet or, wait for help. And I texted him, I'm like, if you don't come back and unlock this, I'm calling the police. I should have just called the police, but I didn't, again.
Wow.
And so that was a really terrifying moment. I'm here, with a 4-month old with no vehicle. He took off in the only vehicle we had. And I just realized things were really bad. And that's when I started looking into different support groups on Facebook of, you know, the term that's thrown around everywhere of, narcissistic, I'm like, oh, he kind of meets the criteria here.
Right.
And then I found some text messages on his phone. He is cheating on me with a couple other women, telling them that, his life is over. He wants to commit suicide. He doesn't want to be with me. All he wants to do is to be with this woman and a bottle of beer on the beach, but he can't have it. His life is over. He was in the 6 months that we were together, or that he was together with River and I, he was only alone with River 5 hours. He was not present at all. And so, I'll pause there. You can,
Well, yeah.
I can
So,
keep going.
so you're this world class athlete. You have major corporate sponsorship. You meet this guy. You fall in love. He moves you away from everything and everyone. He isolates you. I mean, and this is kind of classic, diagnosable behavior. In terms of narcissists and abusers and what have you. What was it about you that you think opened the door for this?
I've been on a healing journey pretty much my entire, or post, I guess, since 2001. I have, been in therapy and done a lot of healing work, but not to the extent that I needed it to. There was still a lot of beliefs, shadows, whatever, inner child work that I did not do. And that program was still running. And I did not realize it at the time until recently.
When you say the
And
programs, what were the programs that were running?
the programs of desperation, needing to be fixed, needing to be rescued, needing to be like saved,
Like all
and
mental framework kind of stuff.
correct.
Okay. So needing to be fixed, needing to be saved, needing to be rescued. What do you know from what? Like what was in your subconscious at that point that was telling you that you needed to be rescued or saved or that you were somehow unsafe?
I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, at that moment, I didn't have any awareness of what was going on. I really felt like um, I was, I've always lived a very, dedicated, disciplined, devoted life, and I couldn't figure out why this this abuse was happening. It felt like something God was upset with me. I was being punished for something I did. Um, it was really hard to wrap my mind around it. I mean, I was also postpartum. I mean, not only having a miscarriage and giving birth all within a 9 month, 10 months, I guess. I got pregnant immediately after my miscarriage, so
Mm.
it was a shock to me. And so, just as women's hormones and emotions that go with that, I was dealing with a lot with no support. Um, and so I was in massive triage, just trying to figure out what the F I was going to do.
Was this the first time you had found yourself in a abusive relationship?
It was not.
So what, tell me about the others. What was this a consistent pattern? Was this second time, third time, or is it like is this an ongoing thing ever since you started dating? Like what?
Yeah, I mean, up until I met my ex, I was deliberately single for 8 years.
Mm.
Before that, I was previously married. That was an abusive relationship, more covert abuse, not necessarily domestic violence, but abusive in other ways. And had two boyfriend relationships right after that. One of them was not healthy. The other one was with an addict,
Mm.
and so I kept attracting, like um, the wrong guys, the wrong males. And it was at that point, I guess that was in 2008, and I was like, okay, something is not working out here. Like, we've gone through three relationships in a very short period of time. Let's pause. And so I literally paused, or stopped, I guess, really, all dating from 2008 to the end of 2016, and was like, I need to work on whatever is happening. And unfortunately, I guess I didn't,
Mm.
I didn't untangle what I needed to untangle because it came back into my field.
Okay. So now you're in your late 30s. You're with him. You're isolated from everybody. It's an abusive relationship. He's cheating and finding all kinds of ways to do that. Um, what happened in the marriage and when?
Yeah. So, late fall 2018, I found some more text on his phone. I believe he deliberately left his phone out for me to find him,
Hmm.
but he's projecting about how he's going to kill me.
He's gonna kill
Um,
you.
Projection.
Okay. So he's gone from from suicidal to homicidal here.
Correct. Yeah, I
Okay.
was with a knife in the middle of the night in bed. When I read that text, I knew I was in trouble.
And
I
how
knew
long have
I
you been married? How old was River at this point?
He was 5 months.
5 months. Okay. So the relationship is how long have you been married at this point?
Uh, we were never legally
Oh,
married.
okay. Got it.
I did not want I don't believe in asking the government permission for a marriage license, but we held ourselves out as
Gotcha.
husband and wife.
Okay.
So we called each other husband and wife. So that we were coming up on 2 years total of being together, from the first time we met to,
Okay. So
um,
2 years together. You have a 5 month old, and now he's talking about ending your life in text messages with another person. How did you
correct.
respond to that?
I reached out to my therapist immediately and was like, I think I'm in trouble. Like, what do I do? And, we were trying to get, just keep the peace. He was pretty my ex, well, my partner at that, I don't know what to call him. My soon to be ex, my soon to be ex, was pretty absent, but I was definitely worried about going to sleep at night. What's going to happen? And so that was October
How
2018.
did you do that?
And
Like, how did you go to sleep at night after finding those texts?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure,
Like,
Chris.
what kept you in the house? Like, I guess my first question is, how real did you think the threat was?
It was super real because um,
So what
in
kept you in the
August,
house?
probably fear. I didn't have a car. I had like literally I had no financial means. I had like
Mm,
I had nothing to to leave. I mean, I literally would have had to walk out with my child on the street in farm country and try to get help. I think at that point I was so just in disbelief that this is my life, this is happening. I remember like calling one of my friends, just like texting. I think it was. I'm like, things are not good. It was such an awful situation. I was in shock. I was in shock. The one time, he went on like a mountaineering trip again, and he was supposed to come home, I think like on, I don't know, on a Monday. And I co-slept with my son. And so my son and I are, taking a Sunday afternoon nap in, the middle of the country. And all of a sudden I hear like this noise. I'm gonna get choked up thinking about it. It was terrifying. I hear this noise on like the outside of our master bedroom door, and I see this head like peek around the corner, and I like literally like sat straight up in bed and I screamed, and I said, I just screamed, and he looked around and he was like, "Sarah, it's your husband." And I'm like, "What are you doing? Why didn't you text me?" "Oh, I didn't have service." I'm like, yes, there was service from where you were to coming home. He just lied all the time.
mm.
So that was a terrifying moment. Um, I don't think I did sleep. I was obviously, waking up with my son to breastfeed, and so and to also pump. So that kind of helped keep me awake. And he eventually like slept in a different room. So that kind of eased some of my some of my worries.
Wow. So you're in a house with this person. You feel your life is a threat. And when you called your therapist and said he's threatening to kill me with a knife in my sleep, what happened?
Well, because it was a projection text, and if you're familiar with
Mhm.
projection, it's, he's writing it as if I'm going to do it. Well, I would never do that. So it was very hard to take that evidence to the police and say, I'm in fear of my life, when the text is opposite, like
Right.
he's
He's
using
afraid that you're going to kill him in his sleep. Got it.
correct.
Okay.
But that just based on all of the other text messages and his behavior, that was not what was
Right.
happening. So, fast forward to November 2018, things were still really bad, and I think I've blocked out some of the trauma of that. It was horrific. And he sent me a text one morning and said, "Good luck. I'm out. I'm I've got on a plane, and I'm not telling you where I'm at or when I'm coming back. Good luck." And River was 6 months at that point. Thank you so much for listening to the Pain to Purpose podcast. If you got something out of today's episode, please take a screenshot and share it on social media with your takeaway. Don't forget to tag us at Hope Rose Speaks. Have a beautiful day.